Hello, America. Dave Hodges here. I'm the host of the Common Sense Show. We are the show that is freeing America one enslaved mind at a time. Thank you so much for joining us. Really, really good to be with you. And we're about, and I talk about this a lot, we defend God, family, country. And God put it in my heart today to tell you to look at the book of Deuteronomy. It's the rules, how you live, it's about obedience. And I have discovered, because I tried just about everything else, put God first and things will fall into place. Trust the process. And we need courage. And the book of Deuteronomy talks about having courage in times of transition. And we are in terrible times of transition right now. I've talked a lot about this. I've referenced in two videos Zygmunt Brzezinski's work, The Technotronic Era Between Two Ages, and how a society that's in transition culturally, technologically, how they go through a generation of extreme difficulty. And we're there. And the book of Deuteronomy talks a lot about how you persevere. And one is just to learn what that particular book in the Bible says and then do it. And if you do that, you're going to come out the other end okay. Now, sometimes it doesn't work out that way. Sometimes you have a situation, it's tragic. You stand for your faith and you pay the ultimate price. The disciples, Peter hung upside down. Look at what Paul went through. Persecuted in the same way he persecuted Christians before his transformation. We in America are going through a terrible transition, and we're only seeing the beginning of it. And this isn't about the doom and gloom. I hate that label. It's about we're going through very, very difficult times. And we're highlighting that because the objective I have is not to instill fear, except maybe the fear of God, but it's to instill the fact that you need to start making the right decisions right now. Oh, maybe tomorrow I'll do that. Maybe tomorrow I'll think about doing this. I'll read that. No, it's now. It's now. Now, you can take physical preparations, food, water, guns, gold, ammo, natural medicine, tools, and the Bible and Constitution for the rebuild if necessary. That's all well and good, and you should, and I encourage that, wholeheartedly encourage that. However, you also need to prepare your heart, your soul, and your belief system. And I can't promise you it's always going to be easy. Now, for most of us, when we do that, things end up in the long run being a lot better. It's because we have a destiny. And if we listen and follow, we fulfill that destiny. Some people's destiny is to serve as an example what ultimate faith is, but this life is not what we're defined by. This is a classroom. Real life begins on the other side. And there are some people that show us that their faith in the Lord is so strong that they just live to be to the other side and to heck with the consequences, and they would never deny God. And I've been thinking about this, and I've been looking at aspects of the book of Deuteronomy, which, by the way, tells parents how to witness to their kids, how to serve as good examples, bosses for employees, coaches for athletes, anyone in a position of power. Certainly, we're not seeing this across the board in our government. We're seeing just the opposite. Decadent secular leadership. And I'm sorry, that's just how it is. This is why we need to wipe the deck clean, toss them all at the election, bring in teachers and plumbers and custodians and lawn workers because they know how to manage budgets. And they're not going to be influenced by chasing the glitz and the glamour. And then you put term limits on them before they can. But there are some people that come along that show us that being faithful doesn't always result in immediate gratification and rewards. Sometimes there are very serious consequences. And we have such a case, and I covered this a year ago, Easter, and God's put it in my heart, quite by coincidence, to go back and reintroduce a young lady to you who shows all of us, when she was at the tender age of 18, what it meant to have courage and to stand up for her faith. And I think once a year, as long as I have breath to speak, I should be reintroducing this person. For most of us, and for me, my life got decidedly better when I committed to Christ. Sometimes, though, there's a price to pay. I'll show you our sponsor here. It's something you need to pay attention to. Have you seen what Catherine Austin Fitts is talking about? Well, we'll have to educate you on that, but you better get prepped. But anyway, let me pull up something here and I'm going to play this for you. This was such a moving presentation. I, I, uh, I'm almost moved to tears every time I watch this. And this young lady who went to Columbine High School, where I did my student teaching years ago, was absolutely fearless. And I don't know at the moment of decision if I would have the courage. I'd like to think I would, but I don't know. I don't know. I have her pictured prominently in the background of this video that I previously made. And yes, I've had my America shirt for some time. I wore that not just a year ago at Easter, but I had it on over the 4th of July. We're about God, family, country. I love my country. We've just gone down the wrong path. Anyway, let me play this for you. This is very, very moving. Protect your retirement, please. The banks can keep it if they want to. You're in second place because of the Dodd-Frank Law 2010. Noble Gold can take your retirement away from the bank, put it under your control, back it with gold and silver, which is a lot better than the dollar. It's easy. And by the way, new customers, 1/10 gold ounce coin, just as a way of saying thank you. Noble Gold is the best group I ever worked with. I have to tell you that the government wants me to say there are no guarantees. There's no guarantees in anything. Well, there's one thing, the redemption of Christ, right? But other than that, there's no guarantees in anything. And I agree with giving that warning. Let me just say this. I've been an advertiser for 8.5 years, a customer multiple times over, 7.5 years. That's right. And when I have a deal come in and I complete it, I take a good portion of it and I buy more gold and silver. You should too. And I don't have any retirements associated with the bank. You shouldn't either. Go to DaveHodgesGold.com, put in your email, and I'll send you a free information packet. Or very simply, you can call 877-646-5347. 877-646-5347. You say, who's this larger than life, very pretty young girl? I'm honored to share this stage with her. Her name was Cassie Burnell. She was born in 1981. She died tragically in April of 1999. She was one of the victims of Columbine shooting. And I think it's appropriate that we remember Cassie on Easter Sunday. She embodied the redemptive power of Christ, the transformation, and then she paid the ultimate price in this life for her faith. And I will be honored to see her in heaven and express my great appreciation for her bravery. Let me tell you her story. She was a troubled teen. Her parents had a lot of trouble with her. In fact, they even found things that she wrote. She journaled a lot. She even contemplated killing her parents. They sent her off to a camp. She was raised a Christian. She rediscovered those values. She comes back home, and as her father later described and her mother wrote in a book, she was completely changed. That can happen. when you give yourself to Christ. I've seen that many, many times. And she was a student at Columbine High School. And this story has a little extra meaning for me personally because I did my student teaching at Columbine. Not at this time, it was much earlier than when she was a student there. And she was trapped, and the two shooters were tormenting these people before they killed them. Do any of you believe in God? Cassie stood up and said yes, and she was shot in the head. Interestingly enough, and Billy Graham has even told this story. I heard a replay of this sermon, and a couple of days after her death, her younger brother found something she had written and said, Christ is the only way. And she really had committed to the faith. And a couple of days later, she paid an ultimate sacrifice for her faith and courage. The Lord says, if you deny me before people, I'll deny you before my Father. Cassie's not denied. This story still brings a tear to the eye. But we'll see her in heaven. It's a tough world we live in. There's only one way out. I'm Dave Hodges. This is The Common Sense Show. This is still very moving for me after all this time. And the Columbine connection is really almost irrelevant, except we lost a lot of other wonderful young people on that day as well to the evil that exists in this world. And I look at this case and I think there's so much to be gained from this. Most of us who make this decision are rewarded. Not that there's not trials and tribulations, but we usually don't face what Cassie faced. But sometimes people are allowed to be an example of what true courage and faith looks like. And I'm warning you now, we are going into a very difficult transition time, and I can't predict just how bad it's going to get. I mean, we have people that'll project, and I see some of the logic in what they're saying. There is the rich and elite that want to do harm to most people. They say this, and I can see where they get their thoughts from, but I can't say convincingly that that is the case. But I think we'd be wise not to prepare for that to be the case. Because if you have an unlocked door to your house, not everyone that walks down the street wants to come into your home and harm you and take your things. But there are some that do. And I always say, you need to hope for the best and prepare for the worst. And right now, I think we need a spiritual realignment in this country. Now, my pastor says there is a revival going on, particularly with the young, much like what we see here in Cassie's life, even though the story is now 27 years old. It's hard to believe it's that much time has passed. She would be 45 today, and a mom, the tragedy of the life that she didn't get to live. But I think she serves another purpose. She serves as an example of what we read about in the book of Deuteronomy, being true to the Lord so he can be true to you. And the story of Moses, in large part, about the great Exodus and deciding if we're going to go into the promised land or not. And the great people of Israel at that time were confused, and they had Moses' divine leadership. And we learn in that book what Cassie exemplified here. You can't deny the Lord and expect the Lord to support you. And I hope that you all take this to heart. I don't mean to be preachy. I am not a preacher. But what I can tell you is what we're doing from a secular point of view and putting our faith in anti-Christian type of people, the tech bros largely. And I'm not saying they're all that way, but the major ones don't show me any evidence that they submit to the authority of God. They embellish the authority that they gain over other people through riches and governmental support. And I reject them. I reject their manifestos. I reject their creed for behavior. I reject their greed and avarice that's putting this nation at risk. I think really ultimately the world at risk. And they're pushing us towards the end days. All of them? No, of course not. But the major ones I talk about in here, the Peter Thiels, the Sam Altmans, I don't speak this out of malice, but I don't trust them any farther than I can throw them. And we're going to cover another aspect of the story I've been telling you about the negative effect of the data centers. And these effects could be catastrophic. And they just sit back in their little comfortable domains of their hideaways for disaster they've built. And they just seemingly mock us with their attitude and their words. And it's, I know what you don't know, and I'm going to be okay, and you're not, and I have power over you. You have no power. These are the consistent themes I see in the behavior. And I think that's shocking. And what really upsets me is this administration has embraced these people. I don't know that they fully embrace the ideology. I really don't. Every day I see something that Trump says or does that says, that's the Donald Trump I know. That's the man I voted for. Not perfect, of course, but perfect in his approach to wanting you to have a better life. And I really believe deep down inside of him today, even though he's aligned with these people that I feel are despicable, deep down, he does care about you. Even though he's engaged in actions right now and that are bringing great harm to this nation. And we're about ready to find out how deep the harm is. And it could come to us in a number of ways, multiple ways. Let me count the ways very briefly. What we're doing with Iran is an unproven venture. I've had great guests on my show who I trust and I love them. And they say, we can't let Iran get a nuclear weapon. Trump is right. Okay. I'm unconvinced. And you know why I'm unconvinced? Because these politicians that we've elected, like a George Bush, lied to our faces about weapons of mass destruction, in which we lost 5,000 in Iraq, 5,000 in Afghanistan, and millions dead from those countries. And did they ever find weapons of mass destruction? No, we found weapons of mass deception. And I have a hard time trusting. And I do not trust Netanyahu farther than I can throw him. And people want to say, oh, you're anti-Semitic. Well, the grandson of a lady whose maiden name was Freiberg would say you're full of crap. I'm anti-war criminal. I'm anti my nation has the right to conquer other nations and rule over their people and kill as many people as possible to make that happen. Okay, now Iran could blow up into a world war. China's not going to sit back forever and hope that this crisis will resolve itself. And Iran letting Chinese vessels go through the Strait of Hormuz and not have to pay tribute, which is illegal, by the way, that's not going to make enough of a difference to Chinese oil flow. They're eventually going to step in. But if they don't, let's just look at Israel's design, the Greater Israel Pact, backed by the Board of Peace that President Trump serves as the leader of. They think, and Mike Huckabee said this in an interview, he's the ambassador to Israel. He said this in an interview with Tucker Carlson. I heard it. I heard the interview. I heard his words. And you know what's really sad is I spent time with Mike Huckabee. We had a couple of lunches together. Paul Preston, myself, others in the New California movement. And I came away saying, this is a really good man. His heart's in the right place. Interviewed him. Good guy. His daughter, same thing. And now it's all about Israel, Israel, and they have the right to rule the entire Middle East. Do you understand the conflicts that could come from that? But it gets worse because after Iran, it's becoming very clear that Turkey is their next objective. Really? Now, we have a problem in this country. We're still in NATO, and there's this little thing called Article 5 that says an attack upon one is an attack upon all. And if you wonder what Israel's motivation is to join our militaries, one, it's so America's animosity towards Netanyahu doesn't lead Congress to be forced to withdraw funding. So marry the militaries together, they get our high-tech industry secrets, they get our intelligence secrets, and we're obligated to do what they need to do. What side will we choose? Well, Netanyahu's hedging his bet, merge the militaries, and we'll be invading Turkey. Well, that brings NATO into it. Exactly. You got that? Now, the other thing that could happen here is because of the sanctions, Putin has acknowledged he's running out of oil. Does he nuke Berlin, London? He's threatening it. And Putin's not a man that I would take his threats lightly. Ex-KGB, uh, I don't know if he's a Christian, people. I mean, we hear that he is, but his behavior would say otherwise. His background would too, KGB. And I think we need to take what he says very seriously. When he threatens an ally city with total destruction, I think we should be paying attention. And this war with Iran and the offshoot of it involving Ukraine is devastating to Russia's economy, and our weapons we're supplying is part of the problem, particularly with the drone situation. At what point will World War III start? And then we've got the European leaders who are just bat poop crazy. Well, their leadership in NATO right now and the European contingents talking about invading Russia while they're weak. Well, Article 5 means that we'd have to be part of this. You notice Trump is distancing from NATO. He's there at the conference, but he says, I'm going to cut off relations with Spain, and he's not happy with Italy. And he's sick of the namby-pamby, we'll take advantage of you, but we're too chicken bleepers to stand up for what's right, and that's NATO. And America's been carrying NATO forever, while Europe gets a free lunch from you, the taxpayer. I am no fan of NATO. I don't know that we should pull out, but I'm not happy with it. And neither is Trump. And I don't know what's going to happen. Will we join if we pull out of NATO in an invasion of Turkey? And I guarantee you it will be nuclear war. You will not see the European Union and subsequently the Bank of International Settlement. They're not going to sit back and let this happen unopposed. And then China will take advantage of the chaos and say goodbye to Taiwan. Australia will be threatened. So will the Philippines. So will Vietnam. And then that could lead to another confrontation with India, two nuclear powers. These are the things that we need to be concerned about right now. And I believe there's only one fix. And this is why I showed you a replay of this brave young girl. There's only one answer. And I would suggest that you go back and look, particularly Deuteronomy 7, read that whole chapter. Deuteronomy 6, same thing. Read it because I believe this is our only way out. I've laid down the scenarios. One of these is going to happen, and maybe not exactly the form that I've described, but I talked to enough military people, ex-intel people, that they're all kind of saying the same thing. We are at a very, very difficult time right now, and we are in transition. And the book of Deuteronomy tells us how to get through that transition. And I'm telling you, you can't afford to have ungodly leaders. They need to be removed politically. You can't afford to have the self-serving leadership that we have. the infiltration that exists through dual citizenship. Either you serve America or you don't belong in Congress. Should never be a dual citizen in Congress. It's absolute insanity that we would allow this to happen. There used to be a law against it. And we need to get back to that. I mean, let me give you an example, okay? And I'll just give you the best one. I've been after Mitch McConnell for years. Why? Well, because his in-laws in China, prominent members of the Communist Chinese Party, and we say they're our most dangerous enemy, they control the operations of China's six major ports. Yeah. What did his wife do as Mitch McConnell hangs on to life? Is she by his bedside saying, honey, thank you for this wonderful life, and I'm going to miss you tremendously, and hopefully I'll see you on the other side? No. She flees to Beijing. Honey pot. And a lot of people are seeing this. This isn't just an insightful observation from me. Many people are seeing this. I've called this out years ago. Much younger wife, very attractive, older man. I mean, kind of decrepit, been that way for a long time. I mean, he makes Biden look like he could run a marathon. He had no business staying in Congress. Why do they stay until they die? Well, I know why. It's money. Dianne Feinstein served up until the day she keeled over. So when you look at all these events, this is absolutely horrendous that we're infiltrated to this degree. So whether it's Israel or China or whatever nation it is, in fact, we've had this problem for a long time. I mean, did you ever see the TV show The Americans? It was on USA Network. I think it was a 6-year series. I saw most of the episodes. I was enthralled by it because I've talked to and interviewed some Russian defectors. And their idea was to come to America, as the show portrayed, and infiltrate key positions, have kids here where they're American citizens, and then they go into places like the State Department. They become part of the deep state. And to some degree, they've been very successful. And the transition we're in, if we allow their leadership to persist, the dual loyalties of dual citizenship people, people who are on the take from foreign lobbies like AIPAC, 94% of Congress, they're going to lead us down the wrong path. And if you take a 30,000-foot view, there's nothing Christian about them, nothing redeeming that I can see. And this is why I can unapologetically offer a peaceful solution. Toss them all. That's our electoral process. And if you want to have a crappy America that doesn't serve its people at all, it serves corporations like the data centers in areas where we don't have water and we're in terrible droughts, but we build data centers that are basically water consumers to the nth degree at the top of the nation's thirst list. We are really in trouble. And it's greedy politicians that do this. It's funny, I had this discussion with Paul Preston last night. We were talking on the phone as gave me a call as I was driving home from the gym, and we see it exactly the same way. Toss them all in this election. Don't vote for an incumbent. Well, my guy is pretty good. Please tell me who that is. We'll check it out for you. But if 94% of them are taking campaign donations and with strings attached, of course, and they're serving in the House and Senate, you can't trust these people. Don't listen to what people say at campaign time. Watch what they do. I'll give you an example, okay? How many of you in America think it's a good idea that we merge our military with Israel or with any nation? Canada, Australia. How many of you think that's a good idea that we should give a nation access to our most sensitive secrets and military technology? It's not our numbers that makes us strong, it's our superior technology. And we're ready to give that up to Israel, a nation under the leadership of Netanyahu that we cannot trust. And they have proven that over and over again. Well, this is what you get when you have career politicians. This is what you get when 94% of our representatives at the federal level are on the payroll of Israel, because that's what a campaign donation is. And then you look at this. Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie introduced an amendment to remove Section 224 from the National Defense Authorization Act to be voted on conveniently after the election. And this is the one that merges our militaries. They couldn't even get a hearing on the blockage or removal of the amendment for 224. Well, 94% of them take donations from Israel. You're being betrayed. Can you use treason? I don't think it's too strong a term. I don't know if it fits the legal definition, but treason basically is if you're loyal to another country over your own to the detriment of your own people, that's considered to be treasonous behavior. I'll let you be the judge of where this event stands. What we need are people with the courage of this young lady I showed you. Someone who will stand up and say, I won't back down, even if it costs me my life. Where are those leaders? Do you know when you look at the 56 founders that signed the Declaration, do you know that their families got persecuted? Some of their families got killed. Some of them were imprisoned. Many of them lost everything. They paid a huge price to give you what you have today. I should take a segment at one point in time and go through the history of what happened to the founding fathers who stood for freedom. It's much like what this young lady suffered when she stood for Christ. But it's that kind of example, that leadership, a nation that was based on Christian principles and its founding, is responsible for what you have today. And we're giving that away piece by piece by piece. This is why I felt compelled to share this young lady's story one more time. Unfortunately, in some social media domains, we're being throttled. And we have the numbers to prove it. We have the evidence to prove it. I'm not alone in this. And I'm not really sure why, but I don't think the Christian message is very popular among some groups. So I'm going to ask you to take it upon yourself and make sure that people hear this word. I don't live for the popularity in social media. And our podcast, I mean, if you go to Listen Notes and look us up, we're in the top 0.5% of the world. Over 3.5 million podcasts evaluated. I'm not bragging. What I'm telling you is we have really good success in some areas, and I don't care. I don't care about the money that it brings because we give a lot of it back to charity and to our church. I don't care about that. Well, I do care because I'd like to be able to give to good causes. That's the only thing that motivates me. We've planned well. We have good retirements. We have things paid off. We don't have debt. We've been responsible. So we're not out there chasing the almighty dollar. That's not my motivation for telling you to share. I could care less. Except I want people to hear the word. I want people to see this young lady's story and say, could that be me? And then you look at people who have a wonderful life, which is most of us, when we commit to Christ. And we don't have to have that moment of decision where we stand up and say, Christ or hell at the moment of my death. She probably would have been killed anyway. Because most of the people that were with her there were killed. But it didn't take away the courage that she displayed. And we lack that courage. The founding fathers, the signers of the Declaration, they had that courage. A lot of them paid a price, big price. Today, I look at Congress and they go in there, not millionaires, come out as multimillionaires. How does that happen? How does Elizabeth Warren make $200,000 a year as a person in government and she made $12 million last year? Can anyone answer that question for me? Even if it's legal, she's going there to cash in at your expense. And her anti-American views that we hear every single day are just disgusting. And then she lied about her heritage. I don't care if she's Native American or she's Martian or from the planet Venus. I could care less. But she lied about it. And yet people still continue to re-elect her. You say, well, Dave, the elections might be funny. Okay, then why aren't we fixing that? In other words, I'm talking to people who need to have a backbone and use it to stand up to to really illegitimate authority. And this is also what the book of Deuteronomy teaches you, how to oppose injustice. And we have a lot of it. And let's go back to the moniker I put as a footnote to our show, freeing America one enslaved mind at a time. Well, we're saying now one enslaved soul at a time, and we serve God, family, country in that order. And we have a place in our heart for the oppressed. You've heard me say that a lot. That comes directly out of the book of Deuteronomy. And this young lady at 18 learned a lesson about eternity that a lot of people who go through the broad road that doesn't lead to heaven, they never learn. She learned it at 18, and you heard she had a really difficult life. She's not someone you might have looked at the age of 16 and say, oh, she has a bright future. And you look at who Jesus used as disciples, they weren't perfect people. Look at Paul, persecuted Christians. Look at Peter. Yeah, the man cussed like a sailor on a drunken binge. We can all serve, and we need to. This needs to become a grassroots movement because we have illegitimate representatives in Congress. Totally illegitimate. Anyone who would vote to merge your military with another nation is not fit to serve, and it's borderline treason. I'm Dave Hodges. We got a lot of work to do because we're entering very difficult times. But after you, and since you have watched this tribute to this brave young lady, take a moment in your prayers and thank the Lord for people like her. She serves as an example of what we should all aspire to be, uncompromisingly brave. Final thought. You don't think that Jesus couldn't have called down legions of angels to take him off that cross and save his life? But he wouldn't have fulfilled his mission. Plain and simple. I'm Dave Hodges. This is the Common Sense Show, and all of you can make a difference. Every single one of you.